The depths below, brine sickness and revolt. The smell hit Maya first. That sickly sweet stench of rotting kelp mixed with human waste and something else. Something metallic that made her stomach clench. She pressed her filtration mask tighter against her face as she descended the rusting stairs into the lower decks of Station Prometheus 7. "Another one?" asked Chen, her partner in the sanitation corps, his voice muffled through his own mask. Maya nodded toward the huddled form in the corner. The woman's skin had turned that familiar blue-gray, the telltale sign of the brine sickness that had been spreading through the lower levels for weeks. Her eyes were clouded white, staring at nothing. "That's the 5th this week," Chen muttered, pulling out his collection sack. "The uppers are going to have to do something soon." Maya almost laughed. The uppers, those privileged few who lived in the climate-controlled upper decks with their hydroponic gardens and clean water, had been saying they'd do something for months. Meanwhile, down here in the bowels of the floating city, people were packed like sardines in sleeping pods, barely large enough for a child, sharing contaminated water rations and breathing air thick with mold spores. As they wrapped the body, Maya caught sight of movement in the shadows. A group of lower deckers emerged from the maze of pipes and support beams, their faces gaunt, but their eyes burning with something dangerous. "Leave her," growled their leader, a man named Voss whose left arm had been mangled in a machinery accident months ago. "She's one of ours." "Voss, you know the protocol," Maya said carefully. "The body needs to be processed to prevent what? More sickness?" Voss stepped closer, and Maya could see the angry red rash spreading across his neck, another symptom of the brine sickness. "Your precious uppers have been processing our dead for months, and we keep getting sicker. Maybe it's time we started asking where our people really go." Chen's hand moved instinctively to the shock baton at his belt. "Stand down, Voss. We're just doing our jobs." "Your jobs?" Voss laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. "You mean keeping us animals in our cage while the uppers feast on filtered fish and breathe clean air?" The group behind him shifted, and Maya realized they weren't just sick. They were armed. Makeshift weapons gleamed in the dim emergency lighting. Sharpened pipes, broken bottles, tools repurposed for violence. "The meeting's tonight," Voss continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Midnight. Processing level C. Time to remind the uppers that we're still human down here." Maya felt her blood run cold. Processing level C was directly below the upper deck quarters. If they were planning what she thought they were planning— "Voss, listen to me," she said, raising her hands slowly. "Violence isn't the answer. If we just what? Keep dying quietly?" Voss's remaining hand clenched into a fist. "My daughter was 8 when the waters rose. She'd be 13 now if we'd made it to one of the better stations. Instead, she's been dead for 2 months, and they told me it was natural causes." The grief in his voice was raw, dangerous. Maya had seen that look before, the moment when someone had nothing left to lose. "I'm sorry," she said, meaning it, "but this won't bring her back." "No," Voss agreed, "but it might save someone else's daughter." The group melted back into the shadows as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving Maya and Chen alone with the corpse. In the distance, they could hear the familiar sounds of the station, the groan of metal under stress, the hiss of the air recyclers, the constant whisper of waves against the oil rig platform. "We have to report this," Chen said. Maya nodded, but her mind was racing. She thought about the pristine medical bay on the upper decks, about the weekly resource allocation meetings that the lower deckers were never invited to, about the way the uppers looked at people like her, when they bothered to look at all. They climbed back up through the levels, past the cramped workshops where lower deckers maintained the station's vital systems, past the communal kitchens where thin kelp soup was served twice a day, past the nursery where hollow-eyed children coughed and wheezed in the recycled air. At the security station on middeck, they found Commander Walsh reviewing supply manifests. His uniform was clean, his face well-fed, his quarters spacious enough for a family of 4. "Potential uprising," Maya reported. "Voss is organizing something for tonight." Walsh barely looked up. "Voss is always organizing something. Double the patrols on the upper decks and restrict access to the processing levels. Problem solved." "Sir, with respect, maybe we should consider—" "Consider what? Giving in to terrorist demands?" Walsh's voice was sharp. "The station operates on order, Officer Chen. The moment we start negotiating with criminals, we lose everything." Maya felt something snap inside her. They're not criminals, sir. They're hungry. They're sick. They're watching their children die. Walsh finally looked up, his eyes cold. And that's tragic. But the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The upper decks house our engineers, our doctors, our administrators. Without them, this station dies, and everyone dies with it. What about the needs of the 8,000 people crammed into the lower decks? What about them? They're alive, aren't they? They have shelter, food, protection from the storms, more than they'd have in the ruins of the old world. Maya stared at him, seeing not a man but a symbol of everything wrong with their floating prison. Permission to return to my quarters, sir. Granted, and remember, maintain order at all costs. As midnight approached, Maya found herself standing at the entrance to processing level C. She'd told herself she was just checking the security, making sure the patrols were in place. But deep down, she knew the truth. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridors. Not the measured tread of security boots, but the desperate shuffle of people who had nothing left to lose. She watched from the shadows as they gathered. Hundreds of lower deckers, their faces gaunt but determined, their improvised weapons gleaming in the emergency lighting. Voss stood before them, his voice carrying despite the whisper. Tonight, we take back what's ours. Tonight we remind them that we're human beings, not cargo to be managed. The crowd murmured agreement, and Maya felt the weight of her shock baton, her security badge, her oath to maintain order. Above them, the uppers slept in their comfortable beds, dreaming of better days while the foundations of their world crumbled beneath them. She thought about the woman in the corner, blue-gray and forgotten. She thought about Voss's daughter, 8 years old when the waters rose. She thought about the thousands of lower deckers who worked and died in the darkness, while the uppers lived in the light. And then she stepped out of the shadows, her hand moving not to her weapon but to her badge, unpinning it and letting it fall to the rusted floor with a soft metallic clink. "Room for one more?" she asked. Voss smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a man planning violence. It was the smile of someone who'd found hope in the darkness. "Always," he said. As they moved toward the upper decks, Maya could hear the storm beginning outside, wind howling across the waves, rain drumming against the hull. But for the first time in months, she wasn't afraid of the storm. She was afraid of what they might find in the calm that followed. The lights went out one by one as they climbed, and in the darkness, she could hear the sound of the ocean pressing against the platform walls, patient and eternal, waiting to reclaim what humanity had tried to steal from its depths. Some prisons, she realized, weren't meant to be escaped. They were meant to be broken.